Let's go on. Okay.
We could start right before he comes in, right? And that's good with
Oh
you?
yeah. Oh
Okay.
yeah, definitely so.
Give me 30 seconds.
You hear the cock in the background, man? Are we ready? Tell me now, are we ready? Brother John, are you ready? Tell me now, are you ready? Are you ready for the MTTG show? Yeah, Brother John, we good to go?
Yeah, man, we're ready to go.
Okay, okay, wonderful, wonderful. Brother John, you love that track, right?
I love it. I love it. It's the best thing since sliced bread. No?
You know, that track was produced by our brethren, Alan Baga Branch. You know, the man we had on the program on the Comfort Zone some months ago. Yeah, with some other musicians from Grenada, Tony Dabrio, Burgess McPhee, and our brethren based in Trinidad, the number one bassman in Trinidad, we call him. You know, the man who we call Ramdam.
Ramdam,
You
yes.
know, yeah, so this track is produced by Alan Baga Branch. I think about the only Grenadian that we know of.
Right.
Well, probably I think there's another one since then who has had a Grammy citation, working on a track with Stephen Malley some time back. Okay. So that track has been produced by Baga, as we call him, Rastaman Baga.
Baga.
Yes, we are here for the MTTG show, the Message to the Grassroots show. And we are on here this afternoon. We are expecting a guest to join us as usual. I expect he will be showing up shortly. And we know, oh, Brother John,
yes,
let me take that call. That's him calling me on WhatsApp. So let's hear what you have to say.
Okay.
I'll be off.
Okay.
Means to mediate. Jesus Christ is called between God and man. Can I hear amen to that? Oh, I won't stop there for a couple of days and just preach. The Bible says,
All right, folks, we're gonna drop it a little vibes here for a bit. We're not gonna, Dr. Miles Monroe just doing a piece here on media, but it's all good. Just let me have a piece of something here as we await the gentleman from the West, Sunset City to be exact. Yeah, Raphael Paul Pablo. Yeah, and his guests. So I'll just link up here for a bit and get back to you a little bit. So do a bit of a Jamo music. I find that to watch that Jamo. Okay. I'll probably just run the track. I'll just run the track one more time. Let's run the track, run the Pablo track one more time. Yeah, let's run that track. Let's run that track.
Yes, Brother John. It seems like Dr. Fletcher has been having some difficulty. He used the passcode and so on, and he was not getting through. So I had him do as I have done. I just copy the link and show it in the browser, and it goes. You know, he said he's been trying using the passcode and the password and whatever, and he has been having difficulty not being able to get in.
What is his email
So,
address?
all right.
What is his email address?
I sent it to his email address.
Oh,
I
yeah.
sent it to his email address and I sent it to him via WhatsApp.
Right,
So he's had it both ways, and he said he made efforts to sign in, and he using the passcode and so on, and he was not getting through. So I suggested to him that he do as I do. I just copy the link and I throw it in the browser and I get through. Yeah, once you put in the link, it goes, it takes you straight into take you straight into the room, and it's just for the host to let you in. Yeah, so he said he was putting in the meeting ID and he was putting in the passcode and he wasn't getting through. I don't know why. So
I had a very interesting part of the morning. I had a little talk with Bonner this morning with me and Tessa, and something that was said today. Pablo, this is funny. Last week we talked about the Batarante, right?
The Batarante,
Bonner said that the Batarante was reaping a harvest.
It was reaping a harvest?
Yeah, man. He said they get the Batarante and 100% loan guarantor from Mexico, Argentina, somebody, right?
Okay.
And so they get Lion Ramdeni and another guy, he's a pilot, which operates in Barbados, to negotiate the Liat, right? To contract Batarante. So he wasn't run by Grenada, he was owned by Grenada, running by Liat, was using it. Right? And they had to get back enough money to pay back the loan guarantor for the plane with a profit every year of, I think it was $25 million a year.
Okay.
But he didn't call him, but he said some idiot sell the plane.
Oh, well.
I want to listen to it or say the tape.
Okay.
A number of stuff the man made mention of today, man, and I want to listen to the link to it. I think I sent it. I want to listen to it because it's Bernard made. Terran Branch, I think your time has gone. You came on the wrong show.
That's fine. Go take care, buddy.
Okay. Yeah. How are you doing anyways? How are you doing?
Okay, good.
Yeah. That's a different show altogether.
Okay,
you know what? I will talk to you after. I'll contact you after to talk to you.
No problem. Anytime.
Come back at 5 o'clock with me.
Okay, all right. That's
my time. Yeah,
right.
come back 5 o'clock.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, all right, cool.
Bye.
Thanks. Don't forget,
Oh, okay, no.
Come back 5 o'clock. Yeah.
Same link, all right? Okay.
Yeah, same link, 5 o'clock, yes.
Right.
All right, cool.
Right.
Dr. Stephen Fletcher.
Dr. Fletcher.
Dr. Fletcher is coming on there. Yes, okay. So you talk about the battery, you talk about coffee in Grenada. I said they couldn't stop the coffee from coming because they blocked the market. So they had to import coffee and blend it with Grenada on and ship it out, making a lot of money with the coffee. Again, the Indonesia, the from Holland, they were selling nutmeg to the Soviet Union, right? So they were buying from them. So the Soviet Union said, no, we could buy it from you for the same price we paying the middleman. So they're buying the nutmeg from Grenada for the full value. So instead of getting a percentage, getting the full value of what they were selling to Holland for. Holland was paying, no, the Soviet was paying Grenada the same amount of money that was paying the Holland, the businessman in Holland, the middleman, for the nutmeg from Grenada.
Okay, so well, maybe we'll get to speak. We'll get to speak to that a little more some other time. It appears that we have Dr. Fletcher with us here. Dr. Fletcher, are you hearing us? Can you? Hello, Dr. Fletcher. Are you hearing us? In the meantime, until we have Dr. Fletcher on board with us, as you know, this is the month of our independence, and our independence date is February 7th. We became an independent country on the 7th of February, 1974. So this is our 49th year, and we are moving into the 50th year of independence, and there's going to be some grand celebrations coming up that time. You can expect that, because if it's one thing Grenadians know how to celebrate, don't we, Brother John?
Well, yes, we know how to cook.
Yeah.
We know how to cook and have fun.
Right.
Yeah.
The theme for this year's independence is the journey to 50,
Yes.
reflecting on the past, planning for the future. And we saw that yesterday evening was the hosting of the Calypso competition. And we now have I believe after having had the Sour Serpent winning that competition for consecutive years, I think 2 years in a row, we now have a new independence monarch in the person of Nivion Cox. And coming second was Pappy Boy. And third was Sour Serpent. So Sour Serpent came in third this time around. And tomorrow, Sunday, there's going to be the National Church Service, and that takes place at the Trade Center. But in addition to that, the churches around the country will be having special ceremonies to mark our independence. And we also see that we have a team of parliamentarians who have traveled to New York for the Grenadian celebration up there. And for the very first time, we have opposition and government parliamentarians traveling together to New York to participate in that celebration. We have the minister, Minister Gloria Farmers, and she is representing the NDC administration. We also have the Minister for Foreign Affairs in the person of Minister Joseph Andal, and the opposition minister, the opposition parliamentarian, I should say, Ms. Delma Thomas. So for the very first time, we have opposition and government coming together to participate in the New York independence celebration. Brother John, what do you think of such a thing?
I was just going to ask you, without permission granted from the chief, goes against the grain of the so-called one-manism kind of idea of how things should run. I think it's a very good gesture to show the Ghanaian people that we're not tribal all the way, you know, that we can coexist in the same space and bring benefits to the people. I think one of the outstanding thing about that is that you have two ladies from the same community see the need, yes, to work together for the benefit of the people that they serve, yes? And
yeah, they are both from the same constituency. They ran against each other.
And it shows how if we work together, cards bind together, how much we can achieve more together than trying to separate us by colors and by parties and attitude. And it not only resonated with them, the diaspora pick up on it and decide, look, that's what we want to see happen in our Grenada. Yeah,
wonderful,
so
wonderful.
It's sort of the 16th constituency. Yeah,
right.
We have two good representatives who see Grenada and that party, that we need to build Grenada up together. With one person can do it, one party can do it, but the both parties will come together and work together. And I think Delma clearly stated that if the same Dr. Kit was asking for unity and working together, and now the invitation came from the opposite side to work together in a big way, he accepted it, they have a problem with it, want to discipline her too. So
well, it's a good thing, really, because independence is not a partisan issue. Independence is a national issue for all of us. And we all sing the anthem together, ever conscious of God, being proud of our heritage. May we with faith and courage aspire, build as one people, one family. God bless our nation. So it is working together across political lines. That is how we will accomplish the kind of development that we're looking for. But it's about time now that we bring in our guest.
Yes.
Dr. Stephen Fletcher. Do you care to show yourself up now so that we can start our conversation.
You know, he was my president too. Eh? He was my
Dr.
president.
Fletcher, he was your president. President in what? At what
Nas-
level?
National Students Council president.
Oh, your
Yeah,
National
good
Students Council
afternoon.
president.
Yes.
Dr. Fletcher,
After
good afternoon and welcome to the MTTG show, the Message to the Grassroots show. And I know you're a person who come from very humble beginning, come from the rural community, and really do appreciate this whole issue and the essence of us maintaining our grassroots connections, you know, so much so that your company is named Campeche International. We know what Campeche, the origin of the word Campeche. Welcome to the MTTG show.
Well, thank you very much and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Raphael, for giving me this invite. I've been here on numerous occasions, so I wish to thank you very much for that opportunity. I also want to thank your major host. How are you doing, Chief?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I am good, thanks. I am good.
Nice.
He just provided a historical reference,
Yeah.
Pablo and listeners and viewers. It was the days of the National Student Council.
Yeah.
Those were the period in which we were grounded and we honing the skills and organization at the grassroots level.
Yes, yes.
Really going from school to school throughout the entire country, mobilizing students, organizing students at the school level, and then organizing the National Students Council, which ran for quite a number of years, as you may recall.
Yes, yes.
So some of us develop our skills and our talents in organizations from that period in time. And wouldn't you not say it served us well?
Well, actually it did, because that too, what I'm doing here, I remember I was appointed to be editor of the Eastern Side newsletter. Okay?
Yes.
And then that was my last year in high school. And then I went in the army. But so that again, the media part that you and Nelson and Tally, Senior saw that I could have handled. And now look at it today, Gem FM.
Yes, yes. Very good indeed. Very good. Congratulations on your success as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, and congratulations to you as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
So if we can get started with the official conversation here this afternoon, Dr. Fletcher, well, you're a well-known person, and I don't think you need any particular introductions. We are celebrating, as I was speaking a while ago, we are celebrating 49 years of independence. What would you say is the real essence of our independence? Grenada having been granted independence on the 7th of February, 1974. What would you say is the real essence of that independence?
Yes, Pablo, thank you. And again, before I respond to your question, may I extend first New Year greetings to all your viewers, listeners, wherever they may be.
Yes.
And may I also extend the 49th Independence Anniversary greetings to your listeners and viewers as well. Pablo, with regard to the independence issue, if I remember your question as to where we are at this point in time.
With 49 years, what would you say is the real essence of we having obtained independence from Britain on the 7th of February, 1974?
Okay, let me say this, Pablo, that I have been reflecting on this independence process for quite a while. Yeah, almost on a daily basis, because for me, as you know, and some of your viewers, listeners, I am grounded in development. I am grounded in economic and social development, and that's my forte and that's my mission, right, to contribute towards that. I remember the days of independence. I remember the struggles that took place around that period. And to some degree, the division, the vision for which the country had and for which we aspired as young people at the time when we sought and obtained independence. 49 years later, I am not sure where we are, where we're supposed to be. I think that is the reality. Anybody looking around the country, looking around where we are, would probably conclude that we are really not where we're supposed to be. And let me say this. For me, independence hinges on two fundamental pillars. There is a political aspect of our independence, and that is the issue surrounding political sovereignty, where we are no longer formally part of the British Empire, in which our directives and rules and laws emanate from London. We decided to take up this mantle rather on ourselves and to make our own rules, to establish our own parliament, to manage our own affairs, right? That is a political aspect. And that we achieve by virtue of signing a document, an independence declaration. That's on the one end. The other major pillar of our independence, in my humble opinion, is that of the economic independence. All right, to what extent we as a country have been able to realign our national economic resources to the benefit of our people in a way that no longer necessarily ties us to our former colonies. Because we may recall that the structure of our economy, by and large, has been based on providing the colonial centers with products that they require to fuel the industries, to fuel the manufacturing plants, to fuel the factories. That has not changed fundamentally, right? From 1974 until now. We still remain deeply entrenched in an economic infrastructure and an economic philosophy that have us dependent on the colonial powers that be. So we are tied to that. And why we are tied to that? And an example I will give you is that of the demise of the banana industry and how it was treated by us. And by the way, that leads me to the third pillar, which is the mental aspect, the mindset, where that mindset is. Where does the private sector, the business, and the political leadership leads us to? So let's take bananas as an example. Listeners and viewers very well know that our economy was hinged on the exports of what we call the traditional crops: nutmegs, cocoa, bananas. They were all export items that was produced and to be delivered in London or in one of the other metropolis in Europe. Yeah, so we are producing bananas, fine, going to London. And as soon as the banana regime changed, where it was no longer visible or viable, it was no longer profitable for us to export bananas to the UK, our local banana industry died. We did not allow for the creativity of the minds of our people, the creative farmers, to be turned into action and answering the fundamental question of what do we do with these acres and acres of bananas that we no longer can export to the UK market. So our mindset seemed to have been tailored towards the British market. Now, save and accept the period 1979 to 1983, when there was a deliberate attempt from a national economic development policy point of view to realign the resources of this country in a way that serves the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique, in a way that serves the people to the extent that it focuses on the improvement of the quality of life of our people, and to give us the economic independence that we need. Political independence is one thing, but not having the mental independence, not having the economic independence that will fuel the economy, that will allow the people's lives the quality of life to be improved is quite another. And may I summarize this aspect by making a judgment call.
Okay.
And the judgment call is this, that from an economic point of view, we have an enormous amount of work to do to realign this country. We have some catching up to do. We had some setback from 79 to 83 when we were taking our products and so on and processing it and finding new markets, finding new areas to venture into. 49 years later, I'm not sure we've done it. We look at our healthcare system. Currently, we can argue, and I would argue strongly so, that in the 1970s, we were left with a pretty good network of medical facilities. Pretty good network. Within a 2 or 3 mile radius, we had access to a healthcare center, right? In St. John alone, we had no less than 3 medical centers. Grand Roy, Grove, Florida. So anybody within that, we had access. We had access to a resident doctor. We had access to resident nurses. What has happened 49 years from? Has there improved or has we receded? So to a very large extent, we have faltered in our attempts to get to where we should be. But may I also add that there have been some progress. There had been some partial progress being made. We can see overall that there has been an increase and an improvement in our education. I think we have much more students attending secondary school today, obtaining degrees, right? And making a general contribution to the economy. In the area of business, we can also argue that we have now more Grenadians participating, actively being entrepreneurs and business owners than 49 years ago. We can also argue from the health perspective, despite the degradation of the health facilities, we have more medical doctors today. We have more dentists. We have more nurses. We have more specialists. But the critical question we must ask ourselves is that having expanded the pool of technical skills that we have in the country, having expanded the number of professionals that we have in and out of Grenada, the question for us, how have we leveraged the skills and talents of our people for the betterment of the society, for the improvement of the quality of lives, for the improvement in our roads and our infrastructure? And even, Pablo, may I say this?
Yeah,
we have more educated people today, much more in all fields. But have we improved on the skill sets and the using of that for the overall rising of the tide? Probably the jury's still out on that as far as I'm concerned, but there's work to be done. So progress has been made. It has not been all even. They have been uneven. We have even probably receded in 1 or 2 areas. But I think overall, the trajectory has been good, but there have been some deficits. And for the next 50 years, I think that's what the focus ought to be. How we can improve and accelerate our economic independence to the benefit of our people.
Well, this was a very profound and in-depth response coming from you, and I expect no less from you, actually, Dr. Fletcher, because you, as you said, you are grounded in the whole development construct of our country and very committed to that. Before I want to delve a little more into that, taking us along a different pathway. But before we do that, this month is also Black History Month. Do you see Black History Month as having any significance and any relevance to us as a people, as Grenadians, and as a Caribbean region?
Absolutely. Anything to do with our origin as a people, anything to do with our our blackness and the celebration of that, it's important and useful, because in many respects, it probably helped provide us with a northern star, right, as to where we are and where we should be going at this time. The recognition of this month as such, to recognize in many ways the progress and travels and the progress made by our ancestors ourselves, our African people, is useful, but it's also a reminder of what we have been through, our experiences that we have had, that total experience to get us to where we are today, and to remind us of the fact that we must not settle, that we must continue to move on and we must continue to press on. So if we were to go back to the fundamental period of slavery and the exportation of people from Africa to North America and to the Caribbean, it is one for sober reflection. Reflection in a way that allows us to derive from it our new path to that star, our new path to growth and development. So it is important. And remember, our independence, to a large extent, was rooted in the protest against colonialism. Coming out of the slavery period, as you know, we are colonized and so on, and the protest in Africa for independence started in the late 50s and 60s. In the United States, it reflected itself through the Black Power movement. It demonstrated, it symbolized itself through those struggles, and certainly picked up in the Caribbean as part of in the 1970s, the Black Power movement in Trinidad. The influence it had on Grenada and the other Caribbean islands was very strong. And it was out of that kind of response we had the fight for the political break from the UK, the need for freedom, the need for us to make our own decisions and to live our own lives in a way that is choosing and reflecting of our past, no longer tied to a sort of colonial and not just colonial, a slave ownership. And we wanted to break out from that slave ownership. So the month of February for us should be very profound. And as I say this, Pablo, I must reflect on this. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to travel to Ghana, where I spent some time in what was a slave village, right? That's a community in which the slaves were captured and held for the arrival of the Europeans, right? And they were held there under capture and await the arrival of the Europeans to take them by boat to the various destinations. And this is one of the experiences that it left a very profound mark on my mind and my thinking. Every now and then I reflect on some of the photos that I took and emblem it on a steel rod, right? Because it was a gruesome reminder, and it remains a gruesome reminder of what our people have been through. And may I say this, Pablo, may I say this, that in our reflection on the reflection on slavery, the reflection on independence, and our independence, we must not miss the dialectical links that exist between our independence and slavery. There is linkages. But let us not miss how we as a people contributed, meaning we as African people contributed towards that slavery. I sat and I listened to the young man who took me around give me the tour of that slave village, explaining the process of slavery, explaining how it started by enticing people to go overseas and promises of, you're going to come back to be a better tailor or a better salesman. And then people were not coming back. And when the community attempted to run away from the white guys who were used to go and capture our own people and kept them in that village. In fact, if I may, can I show you a photo from this experience?
Yep,
Is
surely,
it possible? So just give me
Surely.
1 second, please.
surely. Yeah. Yes, it's an interesting situation here. We cannot divorce ourselves from that reality because our independence is linked directly to the experience that we've had, to us having been a slave nation and consequently a colonial nation. Yes, a colonial entity, I should say. And we are coming out, our independence comes out of that. So our independence is not just about, wow, yes. Our independence is not just about our, could you bring it up? Brother John is saying, bring it up. Put it up over your face. Block out your face for a moment. Bring it up. Let's see. Yes.
Okay, you have to guide me because I'm not able to see.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Bring it up one. Mm-hmm. Yes. So our independence comes directly out of that experience. If you may continue, Dr. Fletcher.
Yeah, sure. So basically, the point I was making is that those experiences are very fundamental to us as a people. And it requires us to be truly reflective of the past, but also, Brother John and yourself and viewers and listeners will also agree with me that one of the things they should do is, well, there are a couple of things. One is to say, never again. Never again, and in no form or fashion, would we allow ourselves or any other race or creed to form under slavery and have to fight for independence. Secondly, I think as a country, we should commit ourselves and various governments, and I'm speaking here purely as an independent person, that we should support the cause for independence for countries that still remain under colonial rule. We must, as a country, having had that experience, I think it is incumbent upon us as a country and as a region, right, to assist countries to get out of that mode. Thirdly, we should also seek to deepen relations with our African brothers and sisters, with the diaspora, wherever they may be, because I think there are a lot that we can learn from the continent. There are very good reasons for us to intensify and deepen our links with the continent. The establishment of direct diplomatic relations, the establishment of opening of offices and embassies and consulates in those places to seek a greater merger and coming together for people, absolutely critical. But these things would not happen unless we have a mindset, a changed mindset that allows us to embrace our Africanism first and foremost, to embrace that, but also to embrace that freedom that we have, that independence that we have gained from it, and to allow us to approach our continent not from the paradigm that was given to us by Europeans, but by a paradigm that we know and that we learn about and that we can trust and get into direct contact that allow for the building of relationships, the building of the human spirit. Because I am convinced that a critical element to economic development, to infrastructural development, has a lot to do with the spirit of your people. How do you feel? What is that internal drive and motivation you have? That you have, that you possess, that drives you in a particular direction. So if we were to look at the gains made by the revolution in 4.5 years, we are the same people. We have not changed fundamentally in terms of our bio. But I think the difference that we must agree to is that there was a certain spirit, our soul, a certain vibes, there was a certain values that we had in ourselves that propelled us to behave and act in a particular way. That said to us that we must be part of this developmental process. And that as a people, we can do it ourselves. Of course, we need the help of others, but we are not dependent on others. And here is the crux of this matter of independence. Sometimes we misconstrue independence to mean that we don't need anybody else really. We can do it all on our own. Well, this is a total misconstruction and a totally misunderstanding of what independence is really all about. It does not mean at a personal or was it at a country level that you can do it all by yourself. What it fundamentally means is that you have now the opportunity to make decisions according to your own image and likeness, after considering all the facts, all the information that is available to you, fundamentally. But we live in an interdependent world. Grenada cannot produce all the goods and services we need. We need to depend on others to provide it for us. But what we have is that ability of decision-making, the ability to decide whether we're going to choose from A, B, C, or D. And that's what it has given to us. It gives us the opportunity as well to select our own leaders, our political leaders, and put our political leaders into office to provide us with leadership. It also gives us the ability to withdraw and to recall leaders and political parties and governments that do not perform in a way that is pleasing to our mindset, to our to what we want to achieve. So we have that ability. So as we reflect on independence, and I sometimes hear people saying, well, I'm independent so we can do what we want, or Grenada is not independent because it cannot do as it wishes and so on. To some degree, that is correct. But to a large degree, what it gives us is the opportunity. And may I go back to the first question you raised, Pablo, of where we are. And let me put a tangential and a sub-heading to this. And the question is, have we really used the opportunity that 1974 provided us to get us to where we want to be? Have we used that opportunity? Independence is an opportunity. When we mature and we reach a certain age, right? The age of maturity of adulthood, what we really have is an opportunity, an opportunity that we evolve from childhood to now the age of decision-making, the age of 18 legally and whatever else it is, 16 and 18. As we get into this adulthood period, what we really have in life is an opportunity to take advantage of this evolution that we are going through. So too for independence, the nation-state independence. We ask ourselves, what have we done? Have we leveraged it properly? And we'll all agree there were some missed opportunities. But can we rekindle it? I think we can. I think we can. As was done in 79 to 83. And by the way, let us not kid ourselves. To some extent, the government that took us into independence, Eric Matthew Geary government, they too made strides. They too attempted to get the country and the people onto a certain path, but then it stalled, right? So this, in my view, in my humble opinion, the current administration in Grenada has an opportunity to rekindle that spirit, to rekindle the fire for a truly political and economic model that will allow the Grenadian people to live a more confident lifestyle, to bring confidence in our people, Give our people that sense of high-headedness and high shoulder, that when we go around the world, that we are proud as a people, because we have the confidence that independence allows us to have. But that we also have the possibilities for economic freedom, right? To get involved in leveraging the resources that we have for the benefit of our people and for the benefit of the world to some degree, because we have the freedom now to produce products and services that are no longer tied to a specific colonial center, but that we can choose to export our products and services where we wish to. And that is important for us as we reflect, right? And then there's some other things we can capture to help build on our independence, right? The independence also provide for interconnection at the family, community, national, and regional and international levels. It provides us with the opportunity where we can, for example, at the community level, bring back the spirit of community working together. The days of the Maroons, where we get together and we work together, and we till the soil together, we plant together, we bring family and friends together to help build houses, to construct houses, right? To construct a road, to improve on the quality of the road, to improve on the quality of the healthcare system, a school. That's an opportunity. That's the interconnectedness that we can gain from being independent, right? Because we ought not to take this word too literal to mean that we can do it all our own without the support and contribution of others. Certainly in the context of Grenada as a small island developing state, we really cannot do it ourselves. We need others.
Definitely so. And you are providing some very in-depth and profound responses here this afternoon, Dr. Fletcher. And you are taking us in some directions that where we would need some more extended conversations, because really as this platform, the GEM-FM platform, advocates all the time, education is liberation. And we need to ensure that we educate our people and get them to appreciate all of those matters that relate to our independence, and to understand that independence is not just about wearing our national colors and flying our national flag and cooking our oil down and having a celebration. It is a time for serious reflection as to, in order to have an appreciation and as to the essence of independence, its significance. Why in the first place did we need to be granted independence from Britain, and how it actually relates to our development agenda and programs going forward. Speaking of which, you made mention quite a few times about agriculture and our agricultural programs, our agricultural product. We have seen that various efforts have been made over the years to ensure that the rural community, whose economy depends mainly on agriculture and fishing, that there's been different programs geared to address that issue. We see that what we call the SAEP program, Smart and Rural Enterprise Program, has been a major subject of conversation and a program that was geared to address this whole issue of rural development. As it says, rural enterprise. Now, prior to that, it had been called MAREP, Market Access and Rural Enterprise Development Program. Now, two things. Why are these name dynamics? Why do they keep changing from one to the other over a period of time? And what specifically can you tell us about this SAEP program, considering that your name has been mentioned as the one that is earmarked to take over that program?
All right, so let me start with the last comment you made first, Pablo. So I'm here purely in the context of an independent person, right?
Okay.
Not an employee of SIEP or not one that is earmarked to take over SIEP. It's purely as an independent person. However, I can make some comments and will make some comments on it. It would be not just of me to not to comment on it, having been involved in rural development all my life, and in fact, having been involved in MAREP to a large degree and helping to negotiate the birth of SIEP to a large extent and MAREP itself. So I'll make some comments on this. So I will want to frame my response in the context of the issue of rural development, right? But in the wider context of the poverty that we face in this country and the consistent struggle and battles to eradicate, right, poverty, especially in the rural communities. Now, there is no doubt about it that as you go around the country, there are clear examples of parts of poverty in the country where persons as assessed by Grenada that are not able to earn from a monetary point of view. If I may just get the figure here, something like $6,782 in 2018. That's the estimate that you need to have to live a while. But poverty takes on many forms. It's not just about the ability to earn cash, but we can have poverty, for example, in education. So you can have somebody that is able to have a good meal, all right, when the day comes, a nutritious meal, but they may not be able to send their children to complete primary school, and we have lots of that in the country, or even to enter secondary school. How many persons have access to the internet at home? All of this is under the area of education. So we can have education poverty, intellectual poverty. We also, as another dimension, because poverty is complex, it's not a one-way street, okay? It could be a complex issue. We have the issue as well of living standards. And many a times it is a living standard that we use to measure poverty. In other words, the ability to earn monies and so on and that kind, but it's intertwined because studies have been done to show the relationship between education and poverty. And it shows that persons who achieve a higher level of education tends to grow out of poverty. So there's that link. So we have the living standard issue, right? Issue of housing, the quality of housing that persons live in. The issue of access to internal toilet facilities is an issue. The third area, the complex area, is that of employment. How many persons are literally what I would consider to be experiencing chronic unemployment, long-term unemployment? And under that area is the issue of youth unemployment, right? With the high percentage of our youth population and poverty being highest at that level is cause for concern, right? The poverty among young people is literally twice the national average. And most of these young people are situated in rural communities. Most of them are women in single households. So we have a real problem. The fourth area is that of health and access to health. And the fifth area is certainly the area of risk that you have living, for example, in poor housing conditions, the risk of not having proper pipe-borne water and the health consequences and so on. So as a result of that general background and context, successive governments have attempted to address this issue by collaborating with international organizations, such as the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, which is a UN agricultural-based organization, and the Caribbean Development Bank, to provide funding to governments, to fund programs to assist in that development effort and the eradication of poverty. So we had, for example, Pablo, to start, we had GREP, then we had MAREP, and now we have SIEP, right? It is all about focus, all of them with the R is on rural enterprise development, rural development. So these programs are really aimed at that. So to the SIEP issue, I would like to make the following points, right? SIEP currently, as I understand it, is really focused on, I think it's a fund that comprises over 30-something million dollars, 32 or so $million. It was on a 5-year program. It's now into its last 18 or so months. And the objective, as it suggests, is to really get into what they call climate smart rural enterprise program. So to help develop the rural economy by responding to climate change and the impact on climate change. As we know, the climate has been changing and we have been feeling the consequences of that by whether it's infrequently rainfall or at times you get significant amount of rainfall and then it disappears. So that's an issue. And that's a fundamental issue that we have to address, right? So the SIEP has 2 or 3 major components to it. One component it has is that of enterprise development. Now, the notion is that you need to empower people, young people in particular, who have business ideas and who want to be involved in enterprise, especially in the rural communities. And what better area to get involved in the rural community than in agriculture? Agriculture provides the backbone of this country still, despite the growth in tourism. Despite the expansion in tourism, agriculture is important because there is a direct link between agricultural production and the tourism sector. That is the hotels and the restaurants, because certainly the agricultural production goes to help feed the visitors that come to our country. So there is what is called the enterprise business development arm component of the SIEP program. The second component of that program addresses, so let me just go back to this a little bit and to say that program basically focuses on providing funding and training, entrepreneurial training to young business entrepreneurs, would-be. So through the GIDC, for example, a pot of money is paid to GIDC for providing the hand-holding services, for training young people in preparing business plans, accessing loans, and they then receive a grant. Grant funding is provided to those persons to implement their business ideas. That is under the enterprise business development component. There is a second component, and that second component, which is really critical, absolutely important, deals with the climate smart agriculture aspect, what is called the CSA program. Now, that is really important because it addresses, or it attempts to address, the issue of food production and food security. Yeah? So it encourages persons and provide, again, some grant funding to farmers and would-be farmers, especially young people, single mothers and single households, right, to get involved in agricultural production. So this is a significant component, and it is so important that as this SIEP comes to an end, there is ongoing discussion at the moment to evolve into another program called the Adaptation Fund, the Climate Adaptation Fund, to help foster the response, the farmers' response to climate change. So that is happening. And the farmers throughout Grenada, Carriacou, and Peter Martinique have been accessing this program. So they are providing funding for persons in primary agricultural production, livestock, farming, poultry farming, and so forth. And one of the other interesting components of that program, which you're going to hear a lot about in the next coming weeks and months, is infrastructure. The program recognizes that in order to spur production in agriculture in rural communities, for example, you need roads, right? Pablo, you might be very familiar, for example, with Palmas, right? And Cluj. These villages got roads that go directly into agricultural farms. But part of the problem you have is that persons are not able to farm to the extent that they wishes to because the roads are bad. And persons, in some cases, are moving away from the land because of the challenges and difficulties of getting to the farm and getting the products out of the farm. Now, unfortunately, we no longer have the donkeys, right? In the days of donkeys, you jump on your donkey and you load it up and so forth. Everybody drives now, right? So with your vehicle as a farmer, for which you have access tax breaks from and tax concessions from successive governments to produce on your land, you'll find yourself unable to go to the land because of bad roads. So a component of that program is to help repair and expand on some of these roads. And hopefully you'll see some of that coming out in the Palmas area, in Cluj pretty soon. Around the country, you'll see roads being built in Shambo and so on. That is in the making. So to help, so that's one aspect of the second aspect of the program. And the third aspect of the program has to do with that of training, providing technical skills now, not entrepreneurship training, but technical skills through institutions like NULO and TAMCC, right? They are provided with financial assistance and support to train young people, to prepare them for two streams of life. One, to be employed, to be made employable. And the second one is to become entrepreneurs themselves. So you have a skill, for example, as an electrician or a plumber. You don't necessarily have to go and look for somebody to work with. You can start your own business there and then. So it's quite a comprehensive program. And I thought it is quite good. In fact, I think when you look at that program, it really fits neatly into the current administration policies on rural development and economic development and agricultural development from where we are. So those are the major components of the SAI program. Now, how do you access it, you might ask? That's part of the program is almost coming to an end. You have got the last probably 16 or 15 months on that program for winding up. So they have basically already identified the target groups that they will be working with. And they have been doing that over the past years. Persons who, potential beneficiaries have been identified, and it is now delivering to those persons, really ramping up on the delivery effort. Because one of the downsides of the that the program suffered from thus far is the ability to really deliver and to leverage the resources that have been provided by IFAD and CDB to achieve the end goals of that program. So the program, as I understand it, is at a stage now where it's really been ramped up for real delivery.
Well, that being the case, two questions for you. We have seen a discussion in the public domain about the level of delivery, okay? There has been conversation that SAEP has not really delivered at the rate that they ought to have. And the two, seeing as it's a rural project, a project that is geared towards rural development, what do you think could have been the rationale for moving the head office of that project and putting it in St. George's, removing it from a rural community, that of Sautez in St. Patrick, and putting it on Kirani James Boulevard in St. George's?
That's a very important question. I mean, it always baffled me as to that decision. I don't know why it was made. It was made on the previous administration to move it from St. Patrick's, where it was properly situated, in my view. It definitely it represents a place that is ought to be and should have been. And then it was moved. Because one of the things I did, Pablo, over my time as a consultant was to conduct an evaluation of MARIP itself, right? And in those days, it was situated by the bus terminal in Sotels.
Yeah.
So when I later learned that this was moved to the GCNA complex on the Lagoon Road, I do not quite understand why the policymakers then decided to make that move. I have not been able to speak to anyone to find any validation for such a thing. But there's one thing I will tell you, Pablo, and I'll use the opportunity to, in fact, I think it will be breaking news on your media this evening, that a decision has been taken, as I understand it, to relocate SIAP to the rural communities, to the rural community. The first step in that regard will be the opening of an outreach office in St. Patrick, in Sotels, Haitong Sotels. So an outreach office will be opened next Friday on the 10th of February to serve the rural communities and to take the rural development back into the rural communities. So that is happening. That is happening. It's on. And may I take this opportunity, Pablo, to make this point as we speak about SIAP. SIAP is one aspect, in my view, of rural development. It ought not to be. It ought not to be that dependency on one program to address the multiplicity of challenges you have in improving the quality of life and the infrastructure of rural communities. Okay. So, as you know, may or may not know, that SIAP is one aspect of what is called the Rural Development Unit. So there's a Rural Development Unit of which SIAP, it comprised of SIAP on one hand and BNTF, which in my view are really two rural programs. But we have to expand that, Pablo. We have to create a vision for the rural communities. A vision that says, we do not wish to be like St. George's. We do not wish to be like Tongue, but we need to improve. We need to redefine what we in rural communities see as development, our perception of development, what our children would like to see in the future, how they would like to capture the communities. And for us to mobilize the resources that would be required to make our rural communities what they ought to be, to shape it in their own image and likeness, not to look like Granans or not to look like our Tongue in St. George's, no. So, in my humble opinion, the future of rural development must be determined to a large extent by the people in the communities. And it's called for an expansion of the SIAP initiative. It calls for an expansion of the kind of resources that are made available to it. On the one hand, the resource mobilization issue, but it also called for establishing a governance structure, right? That takes the development, rural development, where it ought to be. So in other words, we have to reassess and replace our development philosophy. It has to be done. Hotels are fine, restaurants are fine. They contribute to our own internal market space. because there are times persons travel from inter-parish. Travel takes place looking for a restaurant, looking for a spot to hang out, looking for a bar, looking for a cultural center. So why not in St. Mark, for example, in Victoria or in Sates? Can we not have a hotel being constructed? Move development. So part of the role of the rural development unit, as I said, is to expand development by whatever we may perceive it to be into the rural communities. For example, development means increased investments. So we need to have increased investments in Victoria, in Sates. Move some of the hotels that have been built in terms of some of the industries that are circulating in the south of the island. Let us move it north. Let us move it east. Let's move it on the west coast, right? Guelph remain a processing center for nutmegs. Well, why can we not set up a factory in Guelph to use the nutmeg shells to produce charcoal for barbecue, or to some other thing that can be used for mosquitoes or to fight against mosquitoes or so? Why can we not set up some small manufacturing plants in different parishes to process the fruits and vegetables and the fish that's coming from there? Guelph has been the center for fish for many years, but also the center for agricultural products, right? So we have to rethink development. We have to rethink the model for rural development specifically and what it means. And part of the rural development unit work, in my humble opinion, is to do that kind of reassessment, do that kind of reevaluation, and involve the people in determining their future, in determining what kind of community they would like to live in.
Yeah, well, you know, you've raised a couple very salient points here, and I want to go to the whole issue of governance, which you mentioned. But before I do, you just mentioned about Guelph and as a center for fish. One of the things that you have to come to terms with also is that communities like Waltham has been producing and bringing forward significant quantities of fish. So outside of Guelph on the west coast, you have right here in St. Mark, where I'm based right now in Sunset City, we have the village of Waltham being a significant producer of such quantities of fish. And they have been without adequate facilities for many moons. And they too would be needing some facilities, because when they come through with their fish, especially when they come through at night and if the sea is high, and so they have serious difficulties. Sometimes they lose the fish that they come all the way from the ocean with. They come and lose it in the surf, you know, and men have to go diving the next morning to see if they can locate it and all of that. So on the issue, the whole issue of governance and this rural development, we saw that in the launch for the shrimp farm, our former Prime Minister, he did lament the fact that so much of the development is taking place in the south, that people have to move from the rural communities in order to position themselves for those jobs that may be available down there. And as a consequence, you have this ghetto-style development taking place, and he lamented that. Well, the issue of the shrimp farm is another thing. But where we are right now, and coming out of the fact that we into a new year, the budget had been read in December, and we just finished January. How confident are you, or what do you think has come out of that budget that can get us moving in the direction that you say we ought to go in terms of this kind of rural development and taking care of our agriculture and fisheries?
Right. Very good question, Pablo, and very good concern. when I look at the budget overall and take a very objective view of what has been provided by the government through the Minister of Finance and Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell, I've said before on similar media that I think that the budget really laid the basis. It laid the basis for transforming the economy of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique, with significant focus on health and wellness, and certainly agriculture and the fishing sector. I will stop at those. I mean, of course, there were education and so on. Now, I cannot recall the exact amount that was allocated for agriculture, but I like to discuss budgets outside of the numbers, outside of the allocations. The allocations are useful because in order to maintain, develop, transform sectors, you need financial resources. But what I think is very critical from this budget is the emphasis that was placed on agriculture. And from the delivery of the Minister of Finance and Prime Minister to the delivery of all the ministers, including the Minister for Agriculture himself, Senator Adrian Thomas, Minister Andrews, and so forth, you can sense a real commitment. You can sense a commitment to the agricultural sector. You can sense a deep commitment to the rural communities and a commitment to fisheries, right? So one can see that coming through the context of the budget. You can see it coming through the narratives. And if I may recall, it was backed by numbers, you know, the financial numbers, the financial allocations. So I am quite hopeful that given the number of state and parastatal agencies that are involved in agriculture and fishing, and given central government's own commitment to those areas, that it can begin to lay the basis for transforming the sectors and improving lives. So for example, I recall that there is in that budget, monies for the re-equipping of the fish markets around the country. I know very well, and that gave me the opportunity, Pablo, to reference what's happening in Waltham. Now that's a very interesting area. You know, I travel that side quite frequently. And the first thing that struck me about that area is just the number of fishing boats that are now out there, actually rivaling that of what I see on the lands. Quite a number of them. But and as time goes on and I look at the facility to which you refer, where the guys have to come in at nights and work and so on, it needs improvement. So there's focus on improving that. The government itself has, is beginning to reconceptualize this whole area of the fishing industry and put on the table a policy framework around the blue economy. And that blue economy, of course, addresses all the economic activities and social activities that can be leveraged from using our sea, our oceans, right? The resource from our ocean, but doing it in a sustainable way, right? That can provide resources and livelihoods for the longer term. So the livelihoods of our fishermen are really important. In fact, SIEP, quite a significant part of SIEP work is in the fishing sector, right? So I'll tell you that the way the organization is structured, we have a number of extension officers. Some serve the agricultural sector and serve some the fishery sector. So we have what is called fisheries assistant, right? Whose task is to provide support to the fisher folks throughout the country. And they are the linkage between what goes on the ground and the policy unit at GCNA. So just to the issue of governance, to narrow it down to SIEP, Pablo, what I foresee and again, I'm speaking here as an individual, where for the moment, the offices at GCNA remain a policy unit, literally, program and policy unit. But the implementation will be enhanced by that extension office that will be open in Sautez.
Okay.
And where the majority of our folks who are fisheries assistant and extension assistant are based, working with the farmers, providing guidance with the farmers, helping them to develop their skills, helping them to develop their business model, helping them to find markets, right? That's where the focus on the issue of governance comes in. And that ties in neatly with government policies and the implementation of the budget measures that we heard announced recently.
Okay. As you mentioned, this whole issue relating to SIEP and the different roles that you have, those coordinators or so as you call them, we saw that some time ago that SIEP, I think it was during the peak of the COVID, sometime in September of 2020, there was a rollout of a program that is supposed to have enhanced the whole issue of backyard gardening. I know SIEP had a program, they initiated a program like that, that was rolled out sometime in September. In the review of SIEP that has been done, what are the indicators relating to that as to its outcome and what it would have accomplished?
Very good question, Pablo, and taking me back to SIEP. That's one aspect I missed. The backyard gardening program was literally put on the back burner, if I may say so. There was an announcement made, and of course, there continued to be some internal administrative work done on it, but it has not delivered as it ought to. It's an area that has really limped along, right? So over the past few weeks and months, as I understand it, it's been revitalized, it's been retooled, and we are expecting to see some action on that area. It's a good program in my view. It really, and again, from a public policy point of view, if we are to learn from experience, and experience is the greatest teacher. We saw what happened under COVID when it seemed as though, well, like we would not be able to import as we used to. We saw a revival in almost every household beginning to till the soil around the houses. In communities you went by, you saw people started to clean up around their houses, begin to plant cabbage, tomatoes, whatever. And the backyard gardening, in my view, is really a complement to that, that will help to improve households' food security. It will help to improve the ability of the house, not just to get food, but nutrition as well, nutrition security, which goes beyond the concept of food, but to allow you to get the vital nutrients that you need for your household, for your family. So it's a long way to say to you, Pablo, is a long answer, to say to you that the backyard gardening was placed on the back burner. It's now been moved from there. It's coming to the front burner. And it is something that you are going to see some serious focus on in implementing, because our people needs it, our family needs it, right? It is an integral part of improving on the nutrition, the health, and the food security of our people.
Speaking of food security, a while ago you did mention about how much, and our Prime Minister, when he was on the Beyond the Headline program, he spoke about the fact that we have more sea than land space, and our education system is not really geared towards empowering us to maximize the benefits that can be accrued from that. What would you say to that issue? And what are some of the things you think that needs to happen in order for us to make greater use and have greater returns from our sea space, from the amount of water that makes up the state of Carriacou, Petite Martinique, Carriacou, and Grenada?
Okay, again, Pablo, certainly what the Prime Minister has signaled is that we need to see our economic space as being beyond the land. And we need to seriously embrace our ocean, our sea, as part of that economic space. Mm-hmm. It has always been so. Some may argue that we fishermen have always gone out to fish. We have always pulled net on the sea to catch jacks. And we have always used it as a part to socialize and play sport. But I think what is coming out there now is a widening of the economic space and to embrace it as an integral part of the state of Grenada, right? So what I'm making of this is what I alluded to earlier on, is the government's narrative and policy, is development policy, which now speaks of the blue economy, of leveraging that. So for example, the fishing sector needs to be better retooled to serve that economic purpose. We need better fishing boats. We need more powerful engines. We need to have boats now that goes out. I mean, it's happening now, but probably to expand on the number of boats that go out there and spend 3 and 5 days and come back with catch. Probably we need to begin to look at setting up small processing plants, right, on some of these boats that has, and those boats are available. I mean, you can buy them, literally, they have been made, they have been manufactured, so that you can actually manufacture at sea. So when you come inland, is to deliver manufactured products, right? We need to use our sea to produce, for example, more and more sea moss, right? To use it in that way. We need to leverage better our yachting industry. There are many yachts that come here. You know, Grenada is quite a place that is a favorite for yachties. But we need to better organize that industry. And herein, may I include the issue of sustainability. Having learned from what happened with our land and some of the issues that we have over land use, we also have to begin to talk now about the sustainability of our oceans. And integral to that issue is how we are going to treat our marine industry. Not in terms of providing concessions and attracting more and more yachts, but how do we manage it? Critical around it are the following. 1, do we have financial measures in place that are not just on the books, but that are enforceable regarding docking in Grenada waters and paying for such services? Do we have in place policies that are implemented, monitored, and policed regarding waste disposal? Regarding waste disposal. We cannot be in a situation as a small island developing state where we are attracting visitors on the one hand for part of the reason for economic gain, but on the other hand, leading to a destruction and a pollution of our sea waters. The two does not go hand in hand, because we are saying to visitors come in and enjoy our lovely beach, our lovely waters. We want to keep it that way. So we don't want contamination as we grow the blue economy. We need to have a critical aspect of monitoring and managing our marine industries. The third thing that we need to look at, as indicated by the Prime Minister in that context as well, Pablo, as these boats come in, as those yachts come in and they're attracted, we need to ensure that we have the skill sets that can provide servicing and services for these boats. So it means that we have to, again, add and retool our institutions, our NULUs, our TAMCCs, our mariners, to train more of our young people to be equipped to serve that industry. In Gore, for example, or in St. John, or anywhere on the West Coast and beyond the West Coast, Grenville, where we have large fishing communities, I would like to see more of our young men and women getting involved in boat building, boat designing, boat maintenance. We now have the technologies, the computers and the appropriate software and so on, and the appropriate apps that should allow our young men to become boat designers, yacht designers. They can stay here and design yachts and fishing boats and all types of boats and have it sold out to some manufacturer out there or some person who is wishing to invest in the purchase of a yacht or boat and get it out there. I would like to inspire our young people in that direction to be designers, to use the creative mind, and here again linked to another policy of the creative industry, right?
Okay.
Where our young men and women in govern the lands and so on can design those things, but also become skilled engineers. So where Grenada can become a center for providing the best.
Uh-oh. You have.
So it seems as though I was muted for a while.
You muted yourself momentarily there.
Yeah, I'm not hearing you, Pablo.
Well, I don't know. I have muted myself. I'm hearing you now. You went off for a while, but you're back. We're hearing you.
Sorry, if you're hearing me, Pablo, I'm not hearing you.
I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you. Yes, I'm hearing you.
John?
Yeah, I am both of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not hearing.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh boy. So what has happened here? Brother John, what do you recommend?
I am hearing you now.
You're hearing now? Okay, wonderful.
Yes, I'm hearing now.
Remind me of the Calypso. Can you hear me now? So you're hearing us now. So you've been speaking about this whole issue of the marine life and how important it is and so on. But we see, and recently there's been conversations taking place on social media about that. The fact that yes, we need to protect these things, but we see that we have gotten into some arrangements with some developers that are actually destroying, have destroyed some of our habitats and so on. What do you think about that? And what are some of the steps we need to take right now to redress some of these issues? Because we cannot allow it to go on unabated. You know, and from where we are now, we do have to draw the line between quote unquote job creation as against getting rid of our patrimony, because we know that down the road, these things are going to impact significantly, or it has the potential to impact significantly in a negative way on our ability to catch fish and the quantum of fish we'll be able to catch and so on. So what's your take on this thing?
Yeah, I mean, certainly this is another area of critical concern. The issue of how we treat Mother Earth and how we treat our natural environment. Mother Earth should be respected. The environment should be respected, because make no joke about it, the environment responds. The environment responds to pressures, It responds to activities and actions that is not comfortable with in different forms and fashion. So it comes in our rainfall, changing our rainfall patterns. It comes in droughts. The earth fights back. It comes in hurricanes. It comes in loss of our fishing stock. It comes in the loss of our ability to live a comfortable life. It throws up viruses and diseases and bacteria and so on if we do not manage Mother Earth properly. So against that backdrop, I believe that it is important for us to learn from other countries, and even here in Grenada, of the consequences, some of it unintended consequences of our actions on Mother Earth as we seek development, quote unquote. Let me hasten to add this. There is no conflict, and there ought not to be any conflict between employment, development, and the harmonious relationship with our environment. There ought not to be that conflict. Mother Earth provides for us to use it in a harmonious way with life. So if we view our ponds and our waters and our streams and our rainforests and so on as part of our community, and we respect it as such, there's not a conflict between job creation and infrastructure development. What is required, by and large, is for our policymakers and implementers, persons who implement policies, to operate on the basis of law, order, right, and policy frameworks, because they are there to be used. So, for example, when you look at some of the developments that are taking place, that have negatively impacted on the environment, that could have been changed. Where are our policy implementers who go around and see what's happening and to intervene appropriately, to advise investors, to advise developers? And if they do not abide by the rules and regulations, then there are penalties, there are repercussions on those things. So we have to start from that angle. Let us look at Satés and what has happened with the Breakwater project. I mean, it is a natural disaster that has occurred. And I've heard of others around the country in which certain actions have been taken on the altar of development that has had negative consequences on the overall environment. But we must protect our environment because we need it to live. You know, one of the things that is, one thing that has emerged recently from the readings on COVID and so forth, is that we face a real threat from climate change, because as the ice caps melt, they are releasing in the environment certain strains of viruses and bacteria and so on that we have not experienced for probably thousands of years, and that will impact on our health. So too, when we when we destroy our mangrove, it's impacting our ability to catch fish. So fishermen, for example, have said to me that they have to go further and further out to catch fish these days. The guys who used to do rock fishing, going on the rock and throwing out your line and catching a fish, as in the days of, you know, Jesus Christ and so on, they are now losing that ability. They are catching less and less fish. One of the reasons that they have provided for that is the fact that our mangroves have been damaged across the country, therefore affecting the ability of our fish to spawn and so on and keep producing. All right, so that's an issue that we have to address. So the issue of our environmental management and how we balance that off with the desire for development, that balance can be struck and must be struck. In fact, good developers and good planners will seek to incorporate some of those things that they have made there into the whole development.
Yeah,
right? And it can be done.
This is definitely going to be critical. Now, it's interesting that you've just referenced that connection between the destruction of the mangrove and the ability of the fishermen to catch the rockfish and so on, the quantity, because that is what was in my mind, because that discussion that was taking place recently, that's the issue that was raised, the level of destruction and degradation that has taken place in the Vera area and so. So that is something that we need to look into. In July of 2021, right here in Sunset City, you participated in a town hall session where you, along with now Speaker of the House, Leo Keto, did presentations on a sustainable rural development agenda, yeah, a poverty remedy. And we've been speaking about agriculture and fisheries and so on. Are we saying that these are the only elements, of development prospects for rural community? And if not, what are some of the other development options that can be available, especially to young people in this dispensation as we proceed with our government having this vision of a transformation agenda?
Okay, Pablo, thanks. I missed part of what you have said because a call was coming through. I'm actually doing it on my phone, but I think I've got the gist of what you're saying.
Well, really, I was speaking to the fact that you did a presentation along with Honorable Leo Keto on this whole issue of a sustainable rural development agenda. And we've been speaking about fisheries and agriculture and so, but are there any other elements or prospects for rural development, especially for young people, that can be harnessed as we go forward? And what are they?
Right. So let me hasten to add this because my phone battery is running down. Okay. It's draining rather quickly. But
yes,
let me say this.
We come into an end. Actually, we have
agriculture and fishing sectors are not the only sectors that are there for rural development and expansion in its primary state. Okay. I will contend and urge that in the agricultural sector, for example, it's not just about working the land. There are processing and manufacturing stages. There are the secondary and primary stages, as economists call it, where our young people can get involved. So you do not necessarily have to be working the land, but you can set up a business, for example, where you buy from the farmers and you sell to supermarkets, you sell to the hotels. So you become a distributor. You consolidate goods from the farm, from the sea, and you sell. You can also get into the tertiary level of manufacturing both the products from the sea, fishing, and from the agricultural sector. But it goes beyond that. My vision of the rural communities goes to the point of where everything that can be done in a town center can be done in the rural communities as far as possible. So for example, in these days of internet technologies and computing, we don't need to move from the rural communities. You can stay in your house and become a millionaire by developing apps, become an app developer, right? By producing documentaries, right? By producing commercials. So the rural communities, in my view, requires the following for transformation. Continuing and heightened education of our people of all ages. Give them the tool to improve the education, the skills. Secondly, give them a way to the world that is internet. And by the way, this is a problem we have to solve. The quality of internet services in this country needs to be examined. We cannot transform a society and digitize the economy and our lives with internet services that fluctuate by the minute. And that is high cost and paying for services that you do not get. This needs to be addressed. And the rural community's ability to expand must ensure that services are available in rural communities. So we do not have to experience the urban drift, right? Where people leave rural communities and come down to the urban areas in search of jobs of their liking. Some of that will naturally happen for various reasons, but the policy must be to reduce that from happening by ensuring that we bring these things to the people. So we need education, we need skills training, we need other types of training that goes along with it. We need internet access and internet services. We need computers and computing technologies that allow people to be in their homes to access it. So we can become architects from your home. You can lie on your bed or sit on your bed or sit on your dining table or your work table and become a successful entrepreneur. You can set up internet-based business. I know of a young lady right now as we speak in St. Mark that is developing I think she's into selling shades and other necessities, right? For women in particular. And all of that is internet driven. Internet driven, you place your order or you call her, she then delivers to you. This is where we need to take our pill, but you know that comes from education, training, developing the skill set, providing internet services, providing the infrastructure at a reasonable cost. And the cost issue comes in as well, to allow people to develop their businesses. And may I also hasten to add, as we get into this whole issue of development, and I spoke earlier on about the road construction on the side, the farm roads, right? Roads to the farm. It calls as well for land use policies. Because one of the things we have to guard against, in the same way we have to guard our natural environment and our marine life and so forth, is where we build farm roads. And immediately as you put in the farm roads, some persons decide that they must now cut up their farmlands and turn it into residential property. After the government would have borrowed money or access grant funding to build farm roads for farmers to increase production, increase productivity, improve our supply of material for the manufacturing sector and for exports and for consumption of our people to live healthy and better lives.
Okay.
So development is a challenge. It is multifaceted. It is filled and underlined by multiple hurdles to climb. There is no silver bullet going to that northern star as to how you're going to get there. But we must establish from now on, as we enter our 49th independence, we must set that target. We must set that goal. We must commit ourselves to it. We must mobilize the resources that are required. And we must step on the brakes and move forward to transforming our country and transforming our rural communities.
All right. Now, your mention of the whole issue of internet access and so in the rural communities, that is critical because we have a situation where the schools, even where there's such facilities provided, one expert has told me that the bandwidth is not adequate in terms of providing the training that is required if you have to teach people to develop apps and stuff like that. And we need those resource centers in some of those places. They have been allowed to go to, to become dilapidated. We do not have the facilities, and so we do not have computers, and so that is something definitely that government will have to look at. Speaking of silver bullet, there is one element of of development or one element of our productivity that's been a major subject of conversation recently. And I know that you have been part of that whole process and you have done presentation on it. That is the whole issue of marijuana becoming another element of our economic production. Where are we with that? We know that government has a policy with regards that. Where are we, and what do you propose that should be taking place at this point in time?
Okay, so again, this would represent another economic crop that we can get to that lend itself to high-level quality products, especially focus on health. So my understanding is that the government, the NDC, having made a manifesto commitment, a campaign commitment to the liberalization of that market, or to the, not liberalization, the decriminalization of marijuana. They have now set up a committee, a team, to look at this whole area of the decriminalization and the development of the sector as an industry. So that I understand is moving. I am not sure what is the level of work that's been done, but my own view, Pablo, is that this is something that we need to hasten with. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's quite a lot of work that's been done here locally on it. There was a roundtable, discussions that was held, I think, in 2021, that was facilitated by the IAGDO through Ms. Sandra Ferguson. The Grenada Conference of Churches were involved, and as you rightfully point out, I was one of the facilitators or presenters at that roundtable. My view is that we need to hasten on it. The industry is growing and growing rapidly. It's now taking on all kinds of forms and turns, and we might just be losing our competitive advantage because we have the unique opportunity of not just having the good soil for the production of the marijuana, but we also have spices. And my hope has always been, at this stage in the development cycle of marijuana and its byproducts, we ought to be looking at blending spices to create the health products that we need. My understanding recently is that some countries have moved in that direction. Yeah. So we have to move rapidly on it in a very sensible way, structured way, right? With the industry in mind that we need to create, because herein lie resources that we can use.
Well, thank you very much for that. We have been here for about 90 minutes already, and I know you say that your battery is running out, you're running out of charge.
Yeah,
so
we are now down to 3 minutes.
Yeah, before you get to that stage, any final words for, as we close, anything that you want to leave with us, any particular recommendations that you want to leave with us as we close for the evening?
Well, Pablo, firstly, I should say thanks for having me again, and for your viewers and listeners for spending the 90 minutes with us. I want to encourage yourself and John to keep this facility going, keep this medium going. It is a useful platform for providing education, sober education, 90 minutes on a Saturday to your viewers and listeners. To the Grenadian public, I will say happy 49th anniversary of independence.
And it's available afterwards online, so.
All right, great, good. Happy 49th anniversary. As we come to that day, let us be reflective of it, and let us seize the opportunities. Let us tell our young ones the stories, because there are many stories of independence, including obtaining independence under darkness, no electricity, but also having a cross that was brought in for independence that has not been lit for many years. The symbolism of it, I don't know, but probably something that we need to put our minds to. So as we go into our independence, we need to be reflective of where we come from, what we have achieved thus far, and to set the new vision for where we wish to go as a people, as a country. In terms of rural development. Again, as you know, Pablo, and as you have stated, is something I'm a rural person. All right, my life is rural. I want to be able, through me, for the people of the rural communities' vision of improved quality of life to be had. And whatever contribution I can make, whatever I can do to put my skill sets, my experience, and my talent to bear in fostering rural development, to enhancing the quality of life of our rural communities, and certainly that of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit-Martinique, I will and shall so do, given the opportunity. Yeah. So I wish everyone well. I wish you and John the continuing success. And let us continue to collaborate and coordinate our activities for the betterment of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit-Martinique, and by so doing, a better world. A better world. Grenada has always scored big. We have always punched over our weight in the international community. We need to reassert that role. Small country, heavy puncher. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. It's unfortunate that some of the earlier time was wasted with you trying to get on and so on, and that would have contributed to depleting or taking away some of the charge that you had, and now you are down to the wire. So
yes,
you have
actually,
you have to.
Actually, to the listeners and viewers, I was meant to log in on my laptop, but somehow I'm not getting Zoom on this laptop.
Okay.
So I had to resort to the phone.
You had to resort
right?
to the phone.
And that's a challenge. Yeah.
Well,
that's
that's how it goes with the technology, because last Thursday, the 26th of January, we had Dr. Ferguson, and he was on. We were seeing him on video, and neither of us, whether here or on his end, he couldn't get his mic unmuted. He himself couldn't unmute his own mic, so he wasn't able to come on, you know. So we have that situation with the technology. Like man, anything that man creates is not perfect, because as humans we are not perfect. So whatever it is, as good as it would be, it is not going to function 100% all the time. But thank you for having us. It's a pity Brother John didn't get to come in as he usually does on the conversation, but definitely another time we will be having you back, and we will need to continue this conversation. So thank you once again, as we come to an end of this official the official part of this evening's program. I want to say thank you to those who joined us, those who have been here from the very onset. We did cover some serious ground, and as we say, as Brother John usually say, education is liberation. It's about empowering people. It's about providing information that can, provide serious reflection as to where we are and what are some of the things that we need to do as we proceed with the transformation agenda. So thank you very much again, Dr. Fletcher, for joining us. Brother John.
Yeah? Thank you very much. Right. Brother John.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure all the time.
Thank you all the time. Okay, great.
Yes, all right.
Okay, then, thanks.
Yes, you're welcome. You're welcome. All right.
Pablo, yeah.
So
it was good. It was a good one.
Yeah.
I was talking to Bernard Code this morning, and a number of stuff that Stephen raised, the road, when I was talking about the road structure from Guelph to Grenville. Actually, he raised the point that they had raised the money for rural development for 3 agro-industrial plants and a Deepwater Harbor in Grenville, right? So farmers, we're not going to say enjoy it because of the manure and stuff like that. And all the agriculture probably need is becoming true with St. Andrews Port. tourism stuff and the dry goods will be in St. George's, but most of the agricultural aspect of farming tools and will be happening in St. Andrews. And the money's already been raised and in Grenada for the project. So my question is, where the money? You know what I mean? Where is that money?
What became of the money?
Yes.
Mhm.
What became of the money, and also the question of the Batarande,
Okay.
for traveling and transporting. He wasn't operated by Green, operated by Liat, but he was owned by Green, at least to Liat, right? And the profit that was being made from it without having to do the maintenance and the stuff on it, you know what I mean? A really good cash cow for the green economy. And for some reason, somebody drive the fly the plane out of Grenada, and that was it, right? No money paid for it. The other thing that was mentioned this morning was Grenada supplying the product, the agro-industrial products, the tamarind, nectar, all this stuff, and that was made, exported to Canada. He said that there was one chain store company that was ready to accept the products from Grenada, but they was not able to produce. He said, the guy said, well, we don't want for one store, we want for all the stores. But Grenada was not able to produce the amount. So they was in the process of collaborating with other Caribbean countries, right? To help meet the demand. So everybody, all the Caribbean countries will be benefiting from Grenada marketing strategy to supply the rest of North America with the product. Because they had a good marketing strategy to get all that done. So when you look back now, I see all this stuff fell apart, the marketing board falling apart and stuff like that. A lot to be said, I know Stephen's said some stuff there that was really, really interesting. And I wish I could have him have a copy of that thing as well, because it really, really speaks to our stuff that he has spoken of this evening, So I hope that next time, I hope one day we could have B-Man here on the show. You could have it, bring him in, and at one time we could have another discussion around that nature, the blue economy. He spoke a bit about that as well. A lot of spoke about the agricultural sector, marketing board, and agro-industry this morning. So I think Grenada has positioned itself for 4.5 years in a good space to be economically viable and competitive, with the rest of the world. But time didn't permit, things happen. But I wish this government right now will take a deep look, and I think they are doing it. I wish they would do. They think that they are doing that to ensure that Grenadians get the due and the respect and the admiration they had from before. We see now that the Grenadian people are totally behind this government, 90% of them. Whether they're talking about the 28,000 that voted for NMP or not, I think their 28,000 is feeling the effect of change in Grenada. Economically, socially, they're seeing a difference in governance. And I think now that the propaganda, positively speaking here, of what is done in Grenada is beginning to resonate, not only in Grenada, but around the world and the diaspora in particular. So you see that persons who may have reservation of the young people who never had experience in government are steering Grenada in a different direction and able to be accountable and responsible for governing Grenada. I think that's a very key thing to compliment them for. Because probably some people the talk was they were feeling 6 months we were back in office. Remember that kind of talk? Yeah. So it's 7 months and kicking. And that have not happened yet. And we get like negative utterances from some of the NMP trollers making negative comments if one time, like, the gas issue in Carriacou, and if you follow that, where the gas station put up, there's no gas. Well, probably he didn't have gas yet, and the truck didn't arrive yet. Doesn't mean that there's a gas shortage on the island. So, for example, I go up the street and I go to the gas station, full up, and there's no gas. Will I say, can I have a gas crisis? No. It just the truck was not able to come yet. He didn't show up here to deliver the gas. There's not a shortage. It just there was no gas at that particular time yet. So to make an issue out of it and say, okay, oh, there's a shortage of gas in Carrick. Well, you know, whatever the English language is from the shop owner, the gas owner putting up that sign saying that there is no gas. Well, there is no gas, yes, but is there a shortage of gas in the island? I don't think so. I think that particular gas station didn't have gas yet. Whatever the one truck that's supposed to be delivering, and whatever the root cause of the problem why the gas wasn't there yet, that doesn't justify that there is no gas on the island. There is a shortage of gas on the island. You know, probably the owner should have tested his tank earlier in the week. No, I'm 3/4 down. You know what I mean? And have you come earlier, do it until you're empty to call the truck in, and you know what I mean? To come fool me up. So a lot of what I say talk, you know, about shortage and gas shortage in Carriacou doesn't make sense. You know, I think making the statements like that just without really taking into account the shop owner's responsibility to ensure that he have gas all the time. So should be able to until you finish your tank, finish your gas to call for and tell the supplier you need gas. That's irresponsible, you know. So to me, I think was another shot in the wrong vaccination here again.
Well, actually, I could understand why you would have situations like these coming to the fore in terms of the kind of comments, because given the partisan nature of our politics for the past few decades, given the parochial kind of position that's been taken by the administration that has been running government for that extended period, there are some behavioral patterns, there are some sentiments, there are some attitudes that have developed over that period. And it's not only you don't find it only among the NNP supporters, but it has become part of the political culture. And as such, it has been internalized by people who support the NDC. And as a consequence, they expect a continuation of the same, only in the reverse. So they expect what's been happening under NNP to be continuing, but the table just turn around and it's NDC doing it now. But if we are to go on in that way, the country will not ever experience significant growth or, you know, development of any essence. Yeah, and so that is something that will have to be addressed. The whole issue of changing mindsets is going to be critical, and it's going to take programs like these and other such programs that brings the kind of edification that is required to get people's thinking to make an adjustment over time. You know, it's not going to happen overnight, and this is something that has to be ongoing, and there has to be people who are committed to undertake these kinds of responsibility so that people can be sensitized in a different way than we have been doing for the past few decades. So it is a work in progress, and we all have to do whatever is necessary, whatever is required. And that's one of the reasons why I have embraced the opportunity to be here on the GEM FM platform, you know, and identifying people who are in the know, people who have certain experience and who are knowledgeable about various things, that they can come and contribute to the conversation so that viewers can have the opportunity to be exposed to an alternative way of thinking, you know, an alternative way of approaching and analyzing the politics of the country, you know, and as you rightly said a while ago, there needs to be that changing of our mindset and so on. And you did speak also about the whole issue of the programs of the revolution and some things that would have happened and what was in the making and so on. And that it is against that background I often say that the revolution has established a template for our development. It is a matter of us now returning to that template and making whatever adjustments that you can make. Like in a conversation earlier today, I did use that analogy. Seeing that I do leathercraft, I have templates for different designs.
Right.
Okay. So I may have had a template that would have been made 3 years ago, but somebody sees that and they want that design, not because it's 3 years old or it's 5 years old that it's no longer relevant. Somebody would want that design. So I have to return to that template and I have to use that template in terms of making that product. Now, the person may see it and they may say, well, okay, I like that design, but can you make an adjustment? I would like that strap to go this way rather than that way, or I would like this addition to be done to it. And it is the same way based on the dispensation that we are in right now. We would need to tweak some of the things that were done then, you know, given that right now we have technologies that were not available then, you know, and the mindset and the values of people would have undertaken some adjustments, and so, you know, the requirements, the tools of trade, the tools of production, and so on, the rules also that govern how countries do trade among themselves. Because as Dr. Fletcher made the reference earlier on with regards to our bananas, the rules of trade that existed during that time provided certain preferential treatment and so for us as small developing countries, as countries with a colonial past that had been under colonial rule and we were colonies of Britain. So as a consequence, we had certain privileges, certain preferential treatment. When Britain became part of the European Union, they had to make these adjustments and the rules changed. And I mean, who raised it in the international community? It was the United States of America, because they had these big conglomerates be investing in bananas in Central America and in South America. And they felt that, okay, Little Grenada should be on the same level with them in terms of market access. And that essentially destroyed our agricultural product in terms of bananas and our access to the market. So it goes to show you that these people, they really care about us. And we have to appreciate that these people, because if these people really cared about us and had our concerns at heart, do you think that these big conglomerates, big mighty America, will be taking a matter to the World Court that destroys certain element of our economy and puts our farmers at a disadvantage and cause our income stream to be destroyed? No. They don't really have our interests at heart. And we have to think from that level, that these people are not first and foremost about ensuring that we have that level of independence in terms of our ability to get things done, you know. And so we have to be looking at how can we, yes, they give some handouts here and some handouts there, a little grant there and a little grant there, but we cannot take these things for granted.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't behave as though, yes, we have to, okay, master, we thank you, yes, for giving this grant. So we have to be, we have to be subservient to them as a consequence of that. No, we have to get away from that kind of thinking. And our thinking in that regard has to be we have to be able to think without the box. We're thinking with the box as a reference too much. We say we have to think outside of the box. But as my colleague from Gov usually say, once the box is a reference, you're already trapped. So you have to think without the box. Get rid of the box when you are reflecting and when you have to come to any decision. You know, so
something you said there, and Bonner raised the point this morning that the IMF, most of the chairman of the IMF were appointed by the President of the United States. And we had a problem getting monies from the IMF, International Monetary Fund, because it was had ball in Grenada. So we went to, I remember it was January of 2092, we went to the United States to attend an IMF meeting. And Bonner's delegation actually make mention to them that if you continue to blackball us, we will continue having news conferences about your strategy of blackballing Grenada for political reasons. So what Bonner has done, he has pulled together a lot of Caribbean countries, other groups and having these regular press conferences. And just before the invasion, they actually gave the money, $5 million US. So it'll be something like $13 million really in terms of aid to the farmers. There's the money for the farmers. So that money also came through. Again, you know, it doesn't get to actually start the program because of the invasion and stuff like that. But the money came, you know. So all of these things that, you know, that should have been done and what was in process to have had happened did not take place, but the money had arrived in Grenada. Now the question is, show me the money. You know what I mean?
Well, actually, it's interesting that you raised this point relating to the IMF. And I believe it's against that kind of background that former president of the now deceased of Cuba he was the first one to call for the canceling of all of the debts.
Yes.
Yeah, because he says that the debt cannot be repaid. And the evidence is showing that we will not be able to pay that debt because the system is not structured to guarantee that we will be able to pay that debt. Yes, we have the issue of corruption and whatever else. And, you know, it's interesting that, you know, people point to the issue of corruption conveniently and say that, oh, well, it's because of our corrupt politicians and so on and so forth. But then on the other hand, you would find that Dr. Justin Pierre will do a survey. And when you look at the corruption element, the same people are saying, well, corruption is not a significant factor towards our development prospects and so on. You know, so it's like you want to eat your cake and have it. When it's convenient, you say, well, okay, it's because our local politicians are too corrupt and so on. They get money from out there and so on. This is why we are in this state in terms of our foreign debt and so on. But when you are asked the question, how significant do you think corruption is to your development prospects and so, you don't think it's a big thing. So which is it? Which is it? And we have to be upfront and we have to be genuine when we treat with these issues, because the corruption element is quite significant, right? When you have small countries like ours losing $20 million, so losing $50 million, so, you know, where does that leave us? How far can $50 million go in terms of providing jobs and the services that people rely on from government? How far would $100 million go in terms of doing that? So when you have accumulatively, you have $500 million that's gone, it means that significant services and significant infrastructural development and so that should have taken place and the job prospects that come with it are not going to happen. But you don't have a problem with it. You don't see it as significant, you know, and it really questions, and it is no wonder it is no wonder. And Dr. Fletcher spoke about, when we were speaking about independence, and he spoke about the slavery element, and so that there were those among us who played a role in it, who contributed to it. They're still there. They are still there. These are the ones who always find an excuse for our enslavers. They are people who see these, always make an excuse for these white supremacists and the kind of activities and programs that they involved in that keeps us where we are. Right? They control the system at all levels. They make the rules of the game and so on. That is not in our favor. And then the same people turn around and find excuses for them and say, oh, that is not a problem. It's we that not doing this, or we that not doing that, and so on. You know, and we are our own worst enemies. You know, but these are the people who are the real enemies, because they could always find an excuse. Exactly. And if these same people who turn around, they're the first to jump up and say, oh, our people were involved in the selling of slaves and so on and so forth. These same people would have been the ones going and catch people to sell for those. Yes, because they always have a defense for the white supremacists.
In the conversation this morning, similar situation, but I was making the same similar point, that when they talk about equal pay for equal work for men and women, they could not have enforced it in the private sector as much as they had to enforce it in the public sector, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
You can't force it on people to do, but you could legislate certain things. But he said there was women, who was against it. Women, we're talking about freeing women and having them to be equal about partnership, doing the same work in the private sector with other men, and they still find you shouldn't do it. They shouldn't get the same pay. Women step against it. Say no, you know. So that was a challenge in the private sector to deal with. But the government could do it because they had control over 40% of the workforce is government employed that. That's including women, and most of the women was involved in working for governments in any case, from agricultural workers to back and forth, right? But the amazing thing was that the people who you think would support you in the private sector is able to resisting you in the private sector. That it benefiting them. They still resist it, you know? Mm-hmm. So it begs the question, like you're saying, you know, among us, even within the Black community, that still supports, I will still be injected into the community in groups to create the kind of atmosphere that would benefit the slave master. Yes, they will come in and say, no, we can't do that. Like Malcolm said, the whole slave and the field slave, you know, they are still different. With the field slave, say, let's burn master house down. They say, what are you talking about? That's my home. You understand? Then when master sick, we to come, right? So move fly. When master sick, he's saying, we sick, boss. Boss, we sick, boss. You know, so we see the same thing happening. You know, within even the civil rights movement, they have Black infiltrators coming into the island and mashing it up, and it's for their own freedom.
Yeah.
You know, so it begs the question, like you say, how much of us still not get to the level of freeing ourselves here, and still continuing to perpetrate and propagate the same negative about us? Oh, why we need this, why we need that, you know, and still supporting the white establishment in everything that they do still.
Well, you see, as you make that point, Brother John, what comes to mind is we have been, you hear it all the time, that we need to break, and that was a major talking point when we were going through the constitutional reform process here in Grenada. And they were saying this was to break the final chains of colonialism and so on and so forth. But the people that were propagating that, these are the people who are positioning themselves to get the QC and to be nominated for the OM whatever and so on, and to be knighted and so on and so forth. So how can you be saying through one side of your mouth about breaking the colonial chains, but then you do not want to let go of that element of being ordained by the colonial master, and you see nothing wrong with that, and you will do anything to ensure that that element of things remain. So what that is mental slavery.
It's selfish and it's really self-serving, right? They want to be in a certain bracket, to be classified as part of that establishment. That's what they really want you. They want to use you for their benefit, right? So the more they decorate you, the more important you'll feel among them. But they say, look at, this is my puppet. This is who I use to control those people. That's what they do. So they decorate you, put some labels on you. QC, they will proudly wear it as a badge of honor. But then they use you to oppress and repress your people. Yeah. So at the end of the day, they ensure that these persons get into power. So that could be their man in far away country. The Falklands War was this man that was raised that greater supported Argentina. So in the support of Argentina, they had a town hall meeting, I would call it zonal council meetings. And Bernard said today in St. David's, when the question was asked, an old man in St. David's, he can't remember his name right now, stood up. And when the question was about supporting Argentina came up, and the old man stood up and he said, anybody that take more than 3 weeks to come to an island, this is not his. Because I said, this was not his island. If you take more than 3 weeks to show up, there is not his. The one that if I walk across his mind. So the point was, England can claim. And most recently, we saw an article in the news media with Harry and his brother William was fighting over Africa. I mean, can you imagine? In the 21st century?
In this day and age.
With all the elephants and people is here, like Africa is his own zoo. We have imagine the audacity of these people still thinking, son, two sons fighting over Africa. You're going to a war over Africa, or different parts of Africa. And there's presidents, I tell you, that would play this game with them and give them privileges who they prefer the two sons. That's how dangerous. That's how dangerous we other people could become, or self-destructive, because some people thought and still thinking that if they body up and get the badge of honors, the promise of knighthood and lordship, they could sell out the country to those people and let the country say, that's my own. I control this is my nation. But Tupac made a very interesting observation many years ago. He said, don't be surprised one day they take all this freedom back from us, because they have the means to do it. They could stagnate your country. Yeah, they could shut you down economically. They could say no buying from you, no nothing from you, and they could starve you to death. But we have to be wiser, and we have to be self-producing, self-creative. I think one professor was lecturing to a class, a university class, and he said we can't afford for Africa to be able to manufacture their own. You understand? Because if they start doing that internally, the rest of the world dead, done. So we have to continue to make them believe to make them fight against each other, kill each other, or kill them if they don't toe the line. You see how dangerous they are? So if Pablo not towing the line, in president of Uganda, if you're not towing the line, we kill you. That's how dangerous these people are. And then they bold-faced and brass enough, to say it in public, that they will kill you as a leader of your country if you're not supporting them, if you're not giving them what they want.
Well, they have done it time and again. They've killed a number of not just the civil rights leaders in the US, they killed a number of African leaders, and so the Kwame Nkrumahs and so on. They've actually killed them. The Steve Biko and all these people. They've killed them.
Only
so, go ahead.
The only white person that was taken to international court was Milosevic of Croatia. Every other person in the world court are black in Africa for crimes against humanity. They had supported when then, and now they refused. Think of Charles Taylor, who leave the prisons of America and up in Sierra Leone as president. They support him to the tilt, finance him. He come president and said, no, we can't give you our resources anymore. It belongs to the people of Sierra Leone. The gold, diamond, and the gold, the diamond, and the uranium. All this stuff belongs to us. We can't give it to you for free. They said to kill him.
They get rid of him. Yeah.
And charged for crimes against humanity. You understand me? So
no, but you can't take them to court. You can't take them to the World Court.
They have immunity against that.
Yeah, they have immunity against it. So what gives them that privilege? And some people and some of our people see no wrong with that. They see no problem with that.
Exactly.
You know, it's like they have that kind of entitlement. You know.
And that's a dangerous thing when our people have not educated to the point to understand how this system works. And they think that these people are all right to do what they're doing. Oh, this person, I want to do, they have a playbook was written in 1942. That if Pablo is not doing all that, we'll start leading him as crazy, mad, out of control. Yes? That with Saddam. Saddam was not a control. Gaddafi was not control. Gaddafi, a matter of fact, there was no homelessness, no tax. You know, every Libyan was able to get free medical, free school, everything they wanted was free for them. And then you get rid of it because he was not towing your line. You'll open up a central bank. Even in the Caribbean, you'll get over $1 billion to start a Caribbean central bank, right? Will be financed and supported by Libya. So black people, Caribbean people, will have access to money of their own. You don't depend on International Monetary Fund for money. As a matter of fact, Libya have given a serious a lot of money too. You know, they give to the black Muslim in the United States over $5 million, you know, to start projects and do businesses and stuff like that. And the loans was not, listen to this, their loans was interest-free loans.
Yeah, they didn't function on this interest rate business now.
You understand? So all of these things people don't understand. I think that's what we need to do. We need to educate people on those things to counter those ideologies that tends to make African people feel that they are insignificant. They steal the food, water, and because of food. You know, and we still belonging to them. We are owned by them. And some of our Bucky, what do you call them? Bucky Marshalls?
Bucky Marshall.
You know, society who still feel or believe that we owe the British crown something. We don't owe them nothing. We owe us everything. You know, and we should be able, as our leaders in the Caribbean and Africa should stand up to them. I think Ghana is making some significant move. I think the recent leader, one of this Gambian leader that was killed recently, again, was a fact that he decided to go on his own and stray away from them and do his thing and build his country, his own image and likeness of the people of Gambia. So we see all this thing happening, and Africa is waking up. It's taking a while, but I know there'll soon come a day when they will say, look, that's it, you had enough of it. We'll bring your plants here. We will manufacture everything and send it back to you. We don't sell any material out anymore. Everything happening here, inside here. And then that's what they want. They want to take the raw materials, make it and send it back to us. Or we will make that same thing. We have the raw materials, just go set the factory. I think what Black Stallion said, keep the bread and run the head. You know? I think one of the things that Bernard spoke of this morning is that we had Korea supplying machinery, small tractors for farmers for free, in some cases, soft loans for some of the machinery that was coming in to help farmers in the rural area. So, and some of the plants, the agro-industrial plants, the equipment will be supplied by some of the big countries, Iraq and Libya, and so financing with grants to set up all those factories and everything. You see, so a lot of this stuff would have been done. And I think that's when you have good leaders that taking decisions on behalf of people for the development. So we're going to get to that and educate our people to support that idea and make sure that it happens. You know?
Yeah, it is no wonder that the latter part of the 60s coming through into the early 80s has been labeled as the era of the progressives. Because during that time, as Dr. Fletcher alluded to when he was speaking earlier on, there was that level of solidarity and
Yes.
collaboration between such countries. And they have effectively really destroyed that kind of collaborative effort that was being undertaken during that period. And the new breed of leaders that we've had from then to now, from the middle to latter 80s, coming through to this time, have been serving their interests.
Yes.
And you do not have, we did not have people with this kind of progressive thinking and this kind of collaborative mindset, where we would work together and we would plan together and we would act together and we would lobby together in the interest of one another.
Right.
You know, and so we got into a different dispensation, but it is good to see that we have leaders in Africa, locally here in the region, the Mia Motleys and so, developing that kind of relationship with Africa. We've had our own Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, making certain pronouncement in that regard recently. So things are looking promising, and we would hope that it would continue on the motherland, and that kind of connectivity that we've begun to recapture will continue between our region and the motherland. And I'm not speaking about, when I say the motherland, I'm not speaking about the British Empire.
Yes, make that clear.
I am speaking because the British Empire, Britain is no motherland to us, you know, and we have to stop thinking in that way, because that in itself is mental slavery, you know. So yeah. So Brother John, yeah, go ahead.
In 1982, I had a discussion in the Ministry of Finance with the old guard that was keeping guard, and he make mention of England as the mother country, you know, that he fought in the Second World War for the mother country, you know. And he was older, he probably was in his 60s going there. He was just writing on all vehicles are coming into the ministry there and so on. And he noticed that he noticed that the cars now don't have this crank to crank the cars anymore. You know, you go, the car goes, and you say back in these mother country, cars that come from the mother country, you have to crank them up to start them, you know. So I had a discussion at England is our mother country. You know, Africa is our, he said, no, England is our mother country. And, you know, I let good sense prevail. And he was old already, he was set in his ways, you couldn't change that, you know? So I was letting go, but I was trying to see if I could re-educate him, but he was too old to take in a new kind of a mindset, you know? So
some old dogs, you can't teach them new tricks, you know what I mean? You know, but it's amazing, that these people, they speak with such pride. You know, those who would have gone, they fight for the mother country. But what they don't tell you is that they couldn't mingle with the white soldiers. They were separate. There were separate camps for them. They couldn't eat in the same place with them. You know, they come back here and they speak with such pride and so on, and you know, about the mother country and the fought, you know, and that kind of thing. But they were segregated. They don't speak about the level of segregation and the level of disrespect and dehumanization that they experience. So they don't speak about that at all, you know, because even within the US Army, you know, the Africans were kept separate and apart. They couldn't eat they couldn't eat from the same table as them. It took a while before, it's only because they were losing the war they eventually allowed for black pilots and stuff like that. They're not speaking about these things, you know. They live in this illusion, you know, and you have others who only exposed to that kind of narrative, that they see these people as our saviors. Your enslaver cannot be your savior. And we have to come to terms with that. Your enslaver will never be your savior. We have to change that mindset.
Until the lion begins to tell the story of the hunter will always be glorified.
True. You know,
When somebody
and we need to have these kinds of conversations throughout the month like these, and outside of the month like these. You know, outside of this month, we need to have this kind of conversation. It has to be an ongoing in terms of desensitizing people from that kind of mindset of seeing your enslaver as your savior. We have to stop seeing our enslaver as our savior, because they have no intention. I mean, could you imagine, Brother John, a people whose culture was well, we as children, we grew up going to matinee. You go to the cinema and you watch a film and so on, you enjoy it. Their matinee, there was no movies to go to. Their matinee was women and children coming out on a Sunday afternoon to watch people like me and you being flogged, being hung, and so on. And they had no sensitivity to that, because we were not seen as equal to them. We were not seen as human beings. And these are the offsprings of these people. You think the mindset have changed, that anything has changed from then to now? It's the same thing.
In the United States, for example, in Congress today, are benefactors, the beneficiaries, of the crimes of the fathers. Beneficiaries. They enjoy.
Would they ever say give it back?
No.
Look at what's happening in those African countries. They came, they drove the people from the land, and down the road now you're saying, well, you can't just give it back. I was not involved. I bought the land. If you bought something from a thief, are you going to say you have an entitlement to it? It's stolen. You traded in stolen goods. But you should be going to jail too.
Exactly.
You need to be penalized. You know? So you stole the people's land, and now you're saying, well, I can't give it back because, you know, I was not there. I was not involved in this. I bought it legally, and so on and so forth. You traded in stolen goods. And that's the thing. There are those of us who do not see a problem with that. There are those of us who are saying that, listen, where we are right now, these people, yes, they bought the land legally and they were not there during that time and so on. But it's the same system that was established then that give them certain privileges that allow them to have the same privileges up to today.
Yeah. No, if I knowingly buy stolen goods from you, and the police catch me with it, I'll be charged for accessory to a crime.
Right.
Yes.
Wow. Yes.
So these people and them come into the Caribbean, they take lands and they put people in it. You know, they go to Africa, they kill, they maim, they do all kinds of stuff to people, take the land, like I say, drive them out of the lands. You have to do this still in some African places, countries, So when you ask back for it, well, it's not me, it's my father. Well, you know, if your father steal this stuff and bring it home, give it back. Go back. And you know, the audacity of some of these people tell you in America, for example, go back where you come from. Like, really? You know? I sometimes hear these idiots making these comments and I'm thinking like, where you come from? For example, this congresswoman, she was a refugee, whatever, she came to the United States, she right to the ranks of Iman, whatever her name is there, right? And they want to take her off the foreign affairs committee because she made some statement regarding Judaism or whatever, right? So they want to vote her out of the committee because she made a certain statement they see as offensive to Jewish people. So they had a whole congressional hearing on that. And one person making people following some of the threads, send her back where she come from. Like, no, if everybody in America going to be sent back where they come from, then in their own remain. Because nobody is really American, born, grew up in not your land. So there's a Muslim lady that made a statement, but she's born American, raised in America, and guys, because she made a statement, they say, send her back where she come from. Where she come from? She born American. She grew to school in America. She rose to the rank you know, and become a lawyer, but she's Muslim. But because she's Muslim and she actually hijab and she'll go back to Iraq and go back to Saudi Arabia, that's not where she's from. You know? So when I listen to these idiots, I mean, I say idiots in a nice way, they're making these statements, go back where they come from. If all of them who came from Poland and after the Second World War and come to America and third generation thing, tell them to go back where they come from, where would they go? Because they're native to no place. They're not native everywhere that I'm saying that with no reservation, wherever they are, they're never native to that place. Yeah? There's always Black and indigenous people there before them. So my question is, where will you go back to? Everywhere you have conquered and
speaking about that there was always Black and indigenous people there before them.
Yeah.
A part of the history that is not spoken about, that is not ventilated, that's been hidden, it is not part of the conversation, is that we were here in significant numbers before Columbus came.
Yes, yes.
Right? The impression is given that the only Black people that Black people only came to this region to the slave trade, and that is not so.
That is not true.
That is not so. There were significant numbers of us. We were coming to this region before the white man came.
As a
but
matter of fact,
sanitized. That's been sanitized from the history.
Yeah.
And a lot of our people do not know that. And even when we speak that, they're in denial about it because they subscribe to the narrative of the hunter. Yeah. Yes, they subscribe to the narrative of the hunter. So when the lion tells the story, they disprove it.
Even some of the cubs of the lion question the lion.
Yes, I'm telling you. You know, so and that is the dilemma that we face. You know, and these are the people who are quick to jump up and say, "Oh, Black people were selling Black people into slavery." You know, and they use that as an excuse and a justification for the establishment.
Continuation.
Yeah, but not just for the continuation, for the establishment of the slave trade all that went. Yes, and the whole the whole issue of white supremacy. They use that as a justification for that. I'm telling you, our people are we in a serious place.
There's a place called Negroland in Nigeria, right, where the slave was literally taken from in West Africa there, and a lot of people do not know about that, right? And this where the most intelligent of all came from, right? And I think we heard Dr. Fletcher was making mention of the people who was lied to. Those intelligent people, wasn't just ordinary people who was taken.
No. They wanted the cream of the crop. They always want best stock.
Judah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. You can look at the map, the original African map. Judah was in Nigeria. So all the intelligence here that they have now, and they try to whitewash our history and make it look as though it's only people without significant education. They were not uneducated, but very educated people that they took and brought to the West. You know, so at the end of the day, even when you look back in history, a lot of the invention in the United States was made by intelligent Black people.
Yeah, it was Black.
Was denied the opportunity to get a patent for the work. He was given, the slave master was given the patent and not the slave. You understand? So think about it for a moment. If it was poor, uneducated people, right?
Yes, yeah.
They still was able to design. That's what they was doing over there. Yeah? That's the thing they was doing. So they come to the West, capital come to the West, they saw an opportunity to make this thing happen, but the master didn't give them, the establishment didn't give them the rights to own the patent for those things, right? And most recently in Africa, the brother made the car that doesn't need a battery to recharge it, and the helicopter fly without charging, fly without fuel, and the TV, right, that was able to work without electricity, right, and continue to charge its own self while the TV is on. And then to have electricity by radio waves. So you cut back on fuel costs, everything.
Yeah, but mainstream media don't speak about these things.
No.
You know,
But it's out there.
mainstream media don't speak about these things at all, you know, because
They don't
they
look-
always have to maintain that narrative
Yeah, to
that
keep people in that.
we are lesser to them,
Mhm.
and the major inventions come from them. And there are those among us. I've had people tell me that we have not contributed anything worthwhile to human civilization. You know,
That
there's people
is such
among us who actually believe that. But Brother John, it's come to the point where I have to depart.
Yes,
It's
and I
always
have
good being here and having this conversation. And so,
yeah. Well, you know, as usual.
but is Black History Month.
Yeah.
And we have to speak to these things and put it out there. So, Brother John, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I see
Well,
Mr.
I
Terrence
always
Branch
say-
is coming in. Mr. Terrence Branch is coming in as you
Yes,
speak.
yes.
So,
I was
yes,
thinking. Yeah. All right.
Okay,
Well,
then.
I got to
Okay, then.
but yeah, so we'll talk again later.
Okay, yeah, more time. Yeah.
Cool. All right. One love. Yeah. Terry Branch, how you doing?
Hello, man, my friend.
Just end the live. Let me end the live and come back to you, okay?